Baltimore Ravens fans almost went into cardiac arrest yesterday after quarterback Lamar Jackson went down with an injury.
Whoa! Whoa! I am way too unstable for that bullshit.
And with the preseason finale versus the Washington Commander in a few days, this leaves the Ravens in a tough situation configuring the 53-man roster. And with limited roster openings, does that leave a once promising pick on the outside looking in? In this video today, we're going to take a look at some of the guys that may or may not make this team. But first, let's get it. So yesterday in Ravens land, Lamar Jackson went down with an injury. At first, it was thought of to be a wrist injury. They saw him shaking his arm, flexing his hand, and they just thought that maybe he had some camp soreness. But this was not the case. What had actually happened was Lamar had his foot stepped on and went to the ground. Coaches and teammates alike didn't think too much of it until they started seeing the doctors and trainers gathering around Lamar. Then they knew that this was more serious than any of us thought. And a lot of us Ravens fans, even myself, like I was mad busy at work yesterday, so I didn't have time to even look on the internet and I get an alert on my phone saying Lamar Jackson goes down. And I'm like, oh my Lord, not this year, not this time. We can't afford to have Lamar Jackson out for any period of time. We don't need a repeat of 2021 and 2022. So now I have to stop everything that I'm doing and go on the internet and find out exactly what's going on. And then I found out that somebody stepped on his foot. It didn't appear to be too serious. So with John Harbaugh speaking to the media today, he gave an update on what was wrong with Lamar, because I know I was waiting. We know we're not going to get a straight answer out of them, especially early on without knowing the severity of the injury. But John said that they had x-rays done. There was no structural damage. There didn't seem to be anything wrong. But if you've been a Ravens fan for quite some time, you know that John Harbaugh is a liar. Now, as the head coach of the Baltimore Ravens, he has the right.
Won't you exercise your right to shut the fuck up?
To disclose injuries or not disclose injuries. My thing is, from past dealings with him, if you don't want to say, just don't say. Don't make up lies. Don't say, oh, it's going to be a couple days, a couple weeks, he'll be right back. It's nothing serious, because we've heard it all before. But this time right now is the time that we need true transparency from John Harbaugh. We need to know what's going on with Lamar. He did not practice today. They said he was feeling a little sore, which I'm sure he did. But if there is something more wrong with him, let these fans know so we can temper expectations. So we cannot be excited for week one to go up to Buffalo knowing that we about to kick some ass and then turn around and it's like, oh, Lamar Jackson's not playing.
Boo this man!
This team has crushed our feelings too many times before, and we are still raw from that loss in the divisional round of the playoffs. So please, I implore you, I beg you, whatever. If there's something wrong with Lamar, let us know. But hope and prayers, knock on wood, light your sage, whatever it is that you do, whatever it is that you practice, do what's needed to get Lamar back. And the biggest mystery around this is, who was the player that stepped on Lamar Jackson's foot? And of course, the first thing that everybody went to was Daniel Faalele. And in my mind, I'm just like, please, anybody but Faalele. Anybody. I don't care. Just anyone but him. Because Ravens fans are already ready to crucify him and blame him for something else. And then by proxy, blame John Harbaugh because he's the one that brought him in and has been grooming him since the age of 16. So if there's video out there, if there is proof of who did it, and it is Daniel Faalele, keep that shit under wraps like the Epstein files. Do not give the Ravens flock any more fodder to light Daniel Faalele up. I'm not saying Faalele is the best, but he is a young man that is trying. He's trying to do what he can do. It's not his fault that the coaching staff can't see that at times he's a liability and he's not the best option. It's not his fault. He's doing what he's supposed to do. He's going out there and is playing as hard as he can and is trying to get paid. So if he's the guy that did it, which I pray that he is not, even though it's not really relevant as to who did it, what's more important is the actual health of Lamar and that he actually comes back with nothing wrong with him, nothing that's going to slow him down. We need his mobility. The threat of Lamar Jackson running is what makes this team go. Now, Derrick Henry, he's added another element to that, but teams not knowing if Lamar's going to pass it, if he's going to throw it, makes the Ravens even more dangerous. And by all accounts, all the publications, all the pundits think that the Ravens have the best roster, if not one of the best rosters in the NFL, and they believe by slight margin that they are going to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. So we need a fully healthy Lamar Jackson for a full season. We need the rest of these guys to heal up so the Ravens can make a run at this title. And before the Ravens can actually get to that first step to making it to the Super Bowl, we have to play a game versus the Washington Commanders. It is the third and final preseason game of 2025. And this game is critically important for those last key pieces. There are about 5 to 7 players that are still vying for a roster spot, some guys that are trying to make it onto the practice squad. Now, the Ravens and the NFL have to cut down their rosters to 53 on August the 26th. So they have 5 days to make their evaluations to figure who's going to comprise those 53 guys for right now that are going to make up this iteration of the Baltimore Ravens. And the Ravens have a tough choice to make. This team has talent everywhere. The depth might not be there, but you have guys that you can see a lot of potential in. And the Ravens have to figure out which of these guys we figure can develop throughout the season, which guys can step in if somebody goes down with an injury and make an impact to this team. And for me, one guy that I think is going to make this roster is undrafted free agent linebacker Jay Higgins IV. This guy has been all over the field in practice. He had an interception in week 1 versus the Colts. He had a forced fumble and a sack in the game versus the Cowboys. He has been consistently showing up, and I think that the Ravens are going to keep him around. You can see the talent. I don't see why this guy was not drafted, and Zach Orfield's the exact same way. So this is one of the guys that I think is going to comprise one of these roster spots that we weren't expecting before the season started. Now, there is one guy who is on the outside, kind of looking in, fighting for a roster spot, and much more was expected of him throughout his career with the Ravens. And that guy, of course, has to be David Ojabo. David Ojabo was a second-round pick in the 2022 draft. A lot of you guys thought we got a first-round steal in the second round, and after he recovers from his injury, he's going to be the player that he was at Michigan. But I tried to tell you guys, it's hard to come back from an injury, especially when you're trying to rush it, especially when you're trying to come back a little bit too early to prove that you belong, and you re-injure yourself, and the wheel keeps spinning round and round. Then on top of that, he didn't have an Aiden Hutchinson on the other side of him. But here we are. Ojabo is on the bubble. Now, the one thing that kind of swung in his favor was Adisa Isaac getting injured. He's out indefinitely. So that opens up a roster spot. What the Ravens do with that roster spot, that is another question. Has Ojabo done enough this preseason and in practice to prove that he belongs on this team? He was a healthy scratch many games last year. He didn't make a lot of plays. And even during this preseason, he had that 1 sack versus Anthony Richardson and has done virtually nothing since then. Through the preseason, he has 1 sack, 4 tackles, 3 quarterback pressures, and all of those came in week 1 versus the Colts. He did absolutely nothing versus the Cowboys. So him trying to build up and stack those practices and stack those games are just virtually non-existent. They aren't there. So what do the Ravens do with him? That's kind of hard to say because when you look at the roster, it's dependent upon numbers and need. What are the Ravens going to do with the defensive linemen? Are they going to keep more defensive linemen? Are they going to keep more linebackers? We know that they're going to carry more defensive backs than they need to because it's just a numbers game. With all the injuries we've had during this preseason, the Ravens just want that certainty that if somebody goes down, somebody's going to be there to back them up. Jair Alexander's been in and out of the lineup. Chido Awuzie, in and out himself. We lost the 2 6-round picks. Guys are getting banged up. And the Ravens cannot afford to be caught out there not having enough defensive backs. So does Ruben Lowry make the team? Because he can play cornerback, he can play safety. Are they going to bring Bo Braid onto this 53-man roster? What are the Ravens going to do about Malik Ham? Now, he hasn't had the standout preseason that he had last year, but he's made some plays. But you can see that the talent is there. What do they do with him? Even on offense, what are they going to do about running backs? Are you going to keep 4 running backs or are you going to keep 3? So with this numbers game, that puts David Ojabo on the outside looking in. His once promising career as a Raven just went down the drain. And right now he's fighting for his NFL life. So we'll find out in about 5 days. Maybe after the preseason game on Saturday, the Ravens will begin starting cutting players and we'll start to formulate what this version of the Baltimore Ravens is going to be for 2025. But until then, just know some of your favorites, some of the guys that made plays are not going to be on this team. Now, they may come back to the practice squad. That has yet to be determined. We have to find out which guys are going to be cut. Now, David Ojabo could be cut and come back on the practice squad. That is an option for him. But if the Ravens are actually looking towards the future, if you don't want him, just cut ties with him and let that young man go somewhere else and make his money. So for right now, let's just hope and pray that Lamar's good. They pick the best 53 men for this roster, and the Ravens can march on to the Super Bowl. Go Ravens.